recognize that, or that's a total blast from your past. This is the theme to the CBS TV show Gunsmoke, the longest running Western on network television, and tied, if I'm not mistaken, for the longest running drama, at least on network television. Here to talk about it, Gunsmoke has a 60th anniversary celebration coming up next Friday the 18th. That's at the Sportsman's Lodge in beautiful Studio City, and you can learn more by going to there it is, Gunsmoke60th.com. If you were a fan, you want to know more about it, you might even seen it on your TV retro channels. It might even possibly be on a digital download as well. Here to talk about it, who has in-depth knowledge of all things historic from television and also Santa Clarita history, E.J. Stevens. Good morning.
Good morning.
Now, I'm excited because I could talk about especially television history all day long. And we were talking, E.J., off the air about how we both remember Gunsmoke when we were very, very young.
Very young.
I was born in the mid-'60s, so Gunsmoke was on until I was 10 years old. And so I caught kind of the tail end of the Western genres with shows such as Bonanza and High Chaparral and the Virginian and things like that. But we're talking about Gunsmoke and its longevity, 20 years on the air.
I know, it's amazing. 635 episodes. I mean, it's just unprecedented. There's we have a few shows like that. Sort of now. I mean, The Simpsons has been, 20, 21, 22 seasons, whatever it's on right now. I think Law and Order was also 20 seasons, but 635 episodes, I mean, that's just amazing. It's just incredible.
Exactly. And with only some minor changes in the supporting roles, originally was Burt Reynolds was there for a while. He had Dennis Weaver. And finally, Ken Curtis who played Festus. But all the rest of the major players stayed there for the entire 20-year run, except for Amanda
Blake,
who left the very last season. But what do you think, though? Because first of all, it was a radio show prior to that, right?
Right. And actually, concurrently, there was a radio show. The radio show was going on while the television show was going on for several seasons as well.
And with William
Conrad,
who in the 70s, for those of you who remember, played Cannon, among other things, and Jake and the Fat Man in the 80s. So, but he had an incredible voice, which lent itself to such wonderful radio. So, but we're talking about a broadcast. I mean, Westerns were kind of a new thing for television in the mid-'50s, because up to that point, you had sitcoms, you had some dramas, but a lot of stuff was shot live in New York or kind of limited production value, and then Hollywood kind of saw the opportunity to start broadcasting Westerns. I don't know if this is the absolute first network Western, but it was one of the first, right?
Well, it wasn't the first. I mean, there were several that came out before then, but where they kind of carved their own niche, this one was supposed to be more of a Western for adults. Most of the Westerns that had popped up were aimed at the juvenile market, but
like
this one was
Cisco Kid,
exactly.
Ranger,
And this one was supposed to be aimed more for a mature market. Which there was of course crossover because of all the millions of the kids watching as well, but it was designed to be more gritty, more realistic, more of the real West.
Right. I think it's fascinating that a show, I don't think you can get away with it today, especially on network television, that opened the opening credits had Matt Dillon on the street in the gun showdown with the dude and just pulling the gun on him.
Yeah, a lot of those shows did back then. Think of the Rifleman, they
and just looking at the camera and you're next.
That's right.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, definitely.
But in a different way though, it really was. I mean, on a broader perspective, it was good versus evil. So we're talking about that more of a, if you want to get kind of ethereal about it, a metaphor for making sure that law and order is kept. You had a time back then in reflecting swift justice and being out there on the frontier and having to make quick decisions, and it's an important kind of a lesson that we kind of can go back to.
That's very true, but the one way that, especially in the radio show, I think, if you listen to the old radio shows, one way that the Gunsmoke show kind of varied from that is good didn't always win. I mean, maybe it did eventually, but there was a lot more gray than what you had in most of the Westerns at that time.
Exactly, and they wanted John Wayne to be Marshall Dillon, but of course he was a little tied up with his picture career at the time. So he introduced the very first episode, right?
He introduced at the very first episode, if you ever watch it. John Wayne introduces James Arness, because you have to remember James Arness was not a household name at this time. I mean, he'd been in The Thing from Another World and things like that. But he was in a lot of supporting roles, a lot of westerns up until then. But he had never crossed over to that level of popularity until Gunsmoke. But the very first episode, John Wayne actually introduces him and says, "This is my friend, Jim Arness. I know you're going to love him." And
you got the John Wayne bump, the
there
Duke
you go.
bump. And I want to talk about this because Gunsmoke shot in and around Santa Clarita.
That's right. Its main home for the first 6 seasons, anyway, was Melody Ranch, which we all know from the Cowboy Festival, and that was Dodge City. And if you go there, I mean, you can point out where the jail was, where the Long Branch was, the main street where the shootouts took place. That was Melody Ranch, and the show basically was there as their home until Melody Ranch burned in a big brush fire in, I believe it was '62, and they had to move the production to other stages and other studios. And you can actually tell when you watch, if you know about when this happened, you can watch the transition because there's less outdoor shooting. And whenever you do see shots from outside, it's on a stage. You can tell because it's usually night, and you don't see a lot of horses galloping because they're going to hit right into the side of the sound stage, right? So you can tell.
And even still, they're also still. I can always watch the westerns or almost anything else where you can tell where they shot in Plaza Rita Canyon or up the highway or something like that.
Yeah, Vasquez. Yeah.
So in talking about moving forward, because the TV westerns kind of died out by the mid '70s, and we had bits and pieces, maybe some mini series or things that might have come back, but mostly it's been brought back to life through cable television, such as Deadwood, which has been shot out here. Deadwood was a Showtime or HBO.
HBO, which it was also Melody Ranch. So,
right.
Yeah.
And then also, even though it's not shot in Santa Clarita, with Hell on Wheels, which is an AMC show that's set in the just after Civil War, and it's the story about the Transcontinental Railroad. Right. So the Western has not completely died out.
No, it hasn't. And there's talk now of Deadwood finally making the Deadwood movie. So let's see if they can get that going.
And get it shot out here. That would be awesome.
Right. I'd love to see it shot back
I think
at Melody.
It's fascinating because of the fact that it puts so many people to work. You have a period piece, you've got costumers, you've got set builders, you have horse wranglers and everything else. And more, being, this is an industry speak, but more union actors actually who get to work on those things. So that's really awesome. What do you think is the longevity? What made Gunsmoke stick around so long?
It was great writing. And great characters. I mean, you just knew these people. Now, I was just like you. I watched it in the transition from black and white to color, so I remember. And it seemed like everybody had a different, like a favorite sidekick. I think Festus for me was what made Gunsmoke. But for an earlier generation, it might have been Dennis Weaver or Burt Reynolds. People forget he was on there for several years. And,
that's right.
And just great writing, great characters, and just something that went on that long. It's just so familiar.
Exactly.
Yeah, I remember when I heard that they were going to cancel it, and it wasn't my favorite show at the time. I was 12, 13, something like that. But I just remember being very sad about that because I could even tell back then this was not really going to happen again as far as something that transitioned the whole color, black and white, the first days of television to modern times at that time. And it just was very, very comfortable.
And that's funny. We were talking about this off the air, too, about how it was going to get canceled in the 1967-68 season and was going to be Gilligan's Island was supposed to have a fourth season. And William S. Paley, who was the head of CBS at the time, Gunsmoke was his favorite show. So he put the nix on it, and then, so it lasted another 7 or 8 seasons.
And I think that's what killed Gilligan's Island.
Yeah, that is. They weren't very happy about that. Anyway. So this is very exciting. Again, Gunsmoke 60th Anniversary Celebration, Gunsmoke 60th gunsmoke60th.com is where you can go to get information about that if you'd like to go to the event and actually see some of the people who are involved in it. And we have Buck Taylor, who is still around, who played Newly. He also has a star here on the Western Walk of Fame a couple of years ago.
I like the new digs, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
And we're right by the Western
That's
Walk
right.
of Fame. You can
right
always
outside the door. Yeah.
So, also, you said today is the actual
Today is the 60th anniversary.
Of when it broadcast.
It was September 10th, 1955, the very first show.
Wow, that's amazing.
Which was here at Melody. Yeah.
Well, this is amazing, Stephen. EJ, we're gonna have you come back and talk more about history.
Sure.
And whether it's TV history or Santa Clarita history. This has been very, very fun. So again, Gunsmoke60th.com if you want to actually go to the celebration or find it somewhere. If it's on the retro TV somewhere, probably playing somewhere, or maybe on streaming device, or you could probably even catch a few episodes on the internet if you look hard enough. Gunsmoke was a great show. Thanks so much for stopping by, EJ. Really, really appreciate it. I had a great time.